What's happening, everybody? Trying one more time. Yep, they can hear me now.
So, well, I think you said "oh" before you were talking. Well, he's there. All right.
Yep. I turned on.
The show goes on. I couldn't tell you what happened there, but
Cool.
all right, carry on.
Awesome. So I was congratulating Chris on his new nephew and saying that the first time I became an uncle, I was in eighth grade, and I think my oldest nephew is over 30 now. So it's freaking nuts how old I'm getting. I hate it, but whatever. I'm holding up okay.
Yeah,
Italian skin isn't too wrinkled yet.
I'm being told you're too loud now, so we'll
Oh
fix
no.
that. But yeah, if you want to roll back through what we're talking about today.
Yeah, so on the podcast today, we're going to talk about the latest AMD and Intel news. We have a review of the brand new OnePlus Nord smartphone, and we're going to talk about the winners of our AMD Ryzen Radeon giveaway and give more details about an upcoming giveaway. If you look in the background of Chris's feed, you're going to see a really pretty system back there. That guy's going to be up for grabs soon. So yeah, that beautiful water cooled, nicely lit RGB system back there, all AMD powered.
It's
It's going to
beautiful.
be one of yours sometime soon. We'll give you the details at the end here.
Yeah. So hopefully I can keep your audio going since I did switch audio sources for you. I've got to make sure I get you added to all the scenes as we go. But I think I've
Okay.
managed if they can hear you right now. But yeah, this is the 270 Conquest from EK, and it is beautiful liquid cooled. So we're very excited to have the chance to give it away.
Yeah, really cool stuff. So I think we'll probably kick things off today with the AMD news. There's kind of two interesting tidbits this past week. AMD launched the AMD Ryzen 4000G series for desktops. This is not a brand new series of processors. This is basically the same 4000 series in notebooks, but socketed and with the power limits kind of lifted. So you get the Zen 2 CPU architecture for the processor cores, but with integrated Vega graphics of varying levels here, differing number of cores and differing clocks depending on the model. So the initial lineup is a six processors, starting with the Ryzen 3 4300GE. That's a 35-watt part. And all the way up at the top is the Ryzen 7 4700G. Now that top end part is 8 cores, 16 threads, so nice high core count for a mainstream processor. Base clock of 3.6, boost clock of 4.4 gigahertz, and this has eight. This is the full configuration of 8 Vega graphics cores with a graphics frequency up to 2.1 gigahertz, and that's a 65-watt processor. So if you come by the site, we have the full lineup. We have AMD's Prezzo up in the post. What you're going to see is, kind of what you saw on the standard desktop parts, really strong performance relative to Intel's parts on the processor side. And on the graphics processor side, in terms of graphics, really strong GPU performance. So AMD's claiming, out of box dominant 1080p gaming performance, with up to, sometimes more than double the performance of Intel's integrated graphics, and some playable frame rates in popular games like Rocket League, Dota 2, CS:GO, Civilization 6. So all of the goodness that you may have or may not have if you haven't been by the site and read the review, all of the goodness of the Ryzen 4000 series mobile parts with those thermal and power constraints lifted in a new desktop platform. Chris, any thoughts on these guys?
Yeah, I mean, I love seeing these mobile chips get better and better, and to see it on uh, over with these. It's sorry, I'm still trying to scramble and fix up audio, so
I know. I saw the comment
I'm
coming.
half here. So I did bring up my volume a little bit instead of bringing Marco down as much. So hopefully we're more balanced now. But anyways, it's definitely impressive to see this out of AMD when you can run off the integrated graphics. That means you have lower power demands and lower thermals generally. So it's always nice to see for certain classes of users. Obviously, the enthusiasts are always going to reach for a GPU anyway, but it doesn't hurt to have it on board either.
Yeah, not at all. And you get, it may not be as powerful as even a mainstream discrete GPU, but you do get the benefits of having AMD's, full suite of Radeon software with an integrated solution. So, really, really strong parts. Now, the one kicker with these is they're destined for system builders. They're not coming, or at least they're not supposed to be coming to the channel or, retail where enthusiasts can just buy one and build their own. Though, of course, as soon as that announcement was made, they kind of popped up in Akibahara and were available in other regions, just not the US. So I suspect they'll probably trickle out at some point where you could buy them. But for now, destined for, system integrators and OEMs. And and now another piece of interesting news. Now this is also AMD related, maybe not quite as exciting in terms of technology, but AMD released their financials just the other day, and holy crap, they're crushing it. So AMD reported their Q2 2020 financials, and they showed a 23% year-over-year increase, and gross margins increased 3%. To year over year, what is it? 3%, 3 percentage points year over year to 44%. Now, not terribly exciting talking about the numbers. We're not going to spend too much time on it here, but $1.93 billion infused into AMD. They are profitable. Obviously, they're kicking butt. Now, the way AMD reports the numbers, where exactly all of that comes from, isn't broken down, but it's mostly from killer Ryzen sales, because GPU sales were actually down for the quarter year over year. I believe Lisa Su mentioned console sales also down because we're kind of in the quiet period before the next gen launches. But Ryzen and EPYC have just been rocking, and AMD's kind of reaping the rewards. Chris, were you able to check out this announcement or read any of this news?
Yeah, I did see, and AMD has frankly been killing it, and Intel is been struggling, whatever you want to make of that. But AMD on its own, whether or not Intel has been struggling, there's no denying that they've been firing on all cylinders. So it's not surprising to see that it's up. I remember this time last year, their stock price was something like $27, and now it's 76 or so. So almost tripling in a year. That's a pretty good sign, I think. Whether it still has room to climb, I don't know. But it's definitely good for the people who were in it, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So Nathan Ord actually in the chat mentioned 76.09 stock price. I think we're gonna. I am not a financial guy. I have been in this business covering tech for 20 plus years, and I've seen companies announce the coolest technology ever, and the same day their stock price tumbles for whatever reason. I don't know how all that crap is manipulated, but if you're looking at what's happening in the market and what's happening with AMD and their competitors and Intel, I think lots of goodness for AMD for the foreseeable future.
Right. So if we're saying that they've kind of perhaps taken Intel's crown for the moment anyways, do you think they're going after NVIDIA on the GPU side as well? Or do you think they're going to, bump elbows and take that crown too? Or do you think there needs to be a couple more generations away before we start to see something like that?
I could go either way, and I'll tell you why. Now, I don't think, and I'm speculating again, no inside information. I don't think AMD is going to have the same type of feature set as Ampere or the next gen of RTX cards. NVIDIA just had so many, even now, Navi versus Turing. Turing just has a number of additional features that just simply aren't present in Navi. I don't think RDNA 2 or Big Navi, whatever you want to call it, whatever that first big GPU to come, is going to match NVIDIA in terms of feature set. But if you remember our discussions when the 5700 XT came out, that's a relatively small GPU. And if they literally just made it like 40% bigger, it would have been in the ballpark with a 2080 Ti in terms of performance. So if you're running games that aren't using RTX features and AMD goes nuts and makes a really big Navi, even if they didn't tweak it too much, I think they could match NVIDIA's performance. But there will be some new secret sauce coming with RDNA 2 as well. So it's going to be really interesting. The software support on the developer side is what's going to add that additional wrinkle. And with AMD strengths basically in every next-gen console, that kind of plays into their favor. But I still think, NVIDIA's got something really powerful coming. AMD is
So
going
you
to
think they're
look
holding
strong,
something
but I
back?
don't know. I don't think they're holding back. I just think with everything that's happened, the Ampere release wasn't as accelerated as they initially wanted. So they're just fine tuning and tweaking and making it exactly, what they think consumers want. It's probably going to be really strong when it hits.
Right. So if I can throw another one at you, there was
Sure.
the rumors we saw that Nvidia was trying to acquire ARM from SoftBank. Do you think there's
Mhm.
any fire to that smoke, or what do you think the implications would be there?
So that makes absolute perfect sense. If you look at Intel and where they're headed with their discrete GPU, and you look at AMD and their lineup now, Intel and AMD are going to be at the point where both companies can offer top to bottom CPU, GPU completely integrated with their own product. NVIDIA technically can't do that. They have Tegra, which licenses ARM, but they really don't have an NVIDIA CPU. Um, if they wanted to, though, they could buy ARM. I don't know what
Hmm.
that would mean in terms of licensing for everybody around the world that licenses ARM technology now, but they could do that, have a CPU solution at some point, and now you have NVIDIA also able to offer an entire platform that's NVIDIA powered. And I think that makes a lot of sense for NVIDIA.
Yeah.
Whether or not this is allowed to happen with regulatory bodies, I have no idea.
Yeah, and Nvidia is not new to making CPUs. I mean, they have the Tegras that they may. Are they still making the Tegras as much as they were? I mean, they've backed out of obviously out of the smartphone market pretty much, but still doing some discrete chips for machine learning type applications, right?
Yeah, I mean, you have the processor that's inside the Nintendo Switch.
Hmm.
You have lots of automotive platforms powered by some versions of what would have been called a Tegra, but no more consumer parts, like no more Shield tablet, no more Shield gaming device, things like that.
Yeah. How do you think that would play out with Apple, given that Apple is now shifting to ARM for their processors, and they've kind of got some bad blood going with NVIDIA? I think that would cause them some panic myself.
The rumor was Apple wasn't interested in ARM, and even though Apple's an ARM licensee, they're
Not,
really, really custom.
I mean, in switching to ARM-based processors in their MacBooks and Macs.
What do you mean? Like, why would Apple be kind of annoyed at NVIDIA if NVIDIA bought ARM?
Right, because then they'd be ARM based, licensing them then from
Yeah.
NVIDIA.
So, I mean, I don't know. I don't know how that would go. Like, I don't think if NVIDIA was able to move forward with an ARM purchase, I don't think the regulatory bodies would let them sort of restrict any of the licenses that are in place or
Hmm.
moving forward. That would still, I mean, you could decimate the whole mobile industry if nobody else was licensing ARM to make their processors. So, I don't know. I don't know how this shakes out. I don't think Apple would care because their cores are so customized, even though they're using ARM's instruction set.
True.
But I'm not sure. I'm completely speculating. I have no idea how that would play out.
Well, should we get back on track now?
Yeah, let's since we talked AMD, we should probably talk Intel. A couple of announcements out of Intel as well. So over the weekend, I had a little birdie whisper in my ear, and we broke a story on some Tiger Lake benchmarks that leaked. So Tiger Lake, Intel's next gen mobile platform, new processor architecture, 10 nanometer, looking incredibly strong. So a whole bunch of Sandra benchmarks leaked. And in those results, Tiger Lake showed leads over Ice Lake with, a quad core, 8 thread, like versus like. It was the, what was it, the 1165 G7 versus the 1065 G7. So, right in line in terms of the product stack. 42% to an 82% increase in performance. And now there were also a bunch of additional numbers that I didn't have reference numbers to calculate the performance difference, but Tiger Lake looking really strong. Now, we don't know what kind of platform this is. I believe it was listed as a Lenovo notebook, but we don't know what kind of restrictions in terms of power or thermals may have been lifted or what was potentially tweaked or not. Should this turn out to be just a straight up mobile platform, though, Tiger Lake looking really, really strong. It had been one of the benchmarks. The quad core Tiger Lake processor hung with the 8-core U series Ryzen 7 processor. So Tiger Lake looking really good, according to this leak, which of course you have to take with a grain of salt.
Yeah. Now, did we have an indication of clock speeds on there? I mean, I assume we're looking at a 25 watt TDP, but base clock, turbo clock kind of idea?
So not in detail. It shows a 2.8 gigahertz clock in the Sandra numbers, and I believe a max boost of 4.7. But that's just sort of what's reported by the identifier. It's not necessarily the actual clock, so I don't think it's fair to say exactly where it's running.
Right, just trying to get some insight into some potential IPC differences from the 10th gen.
Yeah, so I'm hearing big advantages in single thread performance. Exactly can't say just yet, but we're going to know soon enough. We're probably going to know in about a month. Early September should be when we know all the details for that. Now, another announcement that came out of Intel, not so good. So Intel beat earnings. I'm not going to talk about the numbers on Intel's financial call. They talked about, they're looking strong financially, but one of the two interesting tidbits that came out of the talk was that one, the 7 nanometer process is definitely being delayed, and two, Intel has a contingency plan to use third-party fabs potentially in place. And then there was a follow-up rumor just a couple of days after this that Intel has placed an order for their Ponte Vecchio, HPC enterprise GPU at 6 nanometer with TSMC. This is kind of freaking huge. So everyone's been using TSMC in some form or another, whether for FPGAs or smaller parts. Intel has their own fab, so they've been making their own processors and just about everything else as well. But for some parts, just about everybody does leverage TSMC in some way, shape, or form. But Intel turning to a third party for something monstrous like the GPU chiplets in Ponte Vecchio, that's big news. And it kind of stinks. Intel's been getting beat up. I think we're, 4 years in on 10 nanometer, not quite delivering what they had hoped. And now to hear an official delay on 7 nanometer is kind of disheartening. I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, it's until 2022 or 2023 time frame now.
That's what it said.
Yeah, which, AMD's had 7 nanometer with TSMC for a couple of years now. So not looking good in terms of process fab tech from Intel in the short term, but the implications of using the third-party fabs is really interesting. Something that we should probably banter back and forth. On the AMD financial call, Dr. Su talked about how supply is really tight, and TSMC builds AMD's chips, obviously. Now, if a big monster like Intel is going to place a very large order with TSMC, who is TSMC going to favor in terms of capacity? It could make AMD's supply chain even tighter.
Right.
And again, I'm speculating.
Squeeze out the competition.
Yeah, so this is wild times. This is big news that the general public may not even be aware or care what process their chips are made on, but that's a really big deal. And we just had a comment from Bootman saying Intel may be going to Global Foundries, TSMC, or Samsung. Yeah, I mean, they didn't really specify anybody, but the rumor came out that TSMC got the Ponte Vecchio order. So yeah, really, really wild stuff, man. Intel cannot catch a break lately.
Right, and the huge implications, because, obviously to have your own fabs, you're pouring a ton of R&D into that, billions and billions and billions of dollars, to then have to cut loose and say, okay, well, now we're going to pay someone else to do it. So you're losing all that R&D advantage economically to then pay someone else to make your chips. You're losing overhead on that, a little less profit with each chip sold. It's not an easy position for Intel to be in.
On the flip side, this is another interesting potential wrinkle, right? Let's say Intel's, I don't think this is happening. There's too much invested in 7 nanometer and 5 nanometer. So I don't think this would happen. But if Intel is able to build their processors using third-party fabs, and they now have all this fab capacity open, that's another business opportunity. Lots of companies still need chips built at 14 nanometer and larger processes.
True.
So they could offset the cost of using third-party fabs by building other people's chips in their fabs. It used to be Intel made the best transistors, and they're still really strong. They're just struggling with these leading edge process nodes. But yeah, I mean, it's things are wild right now. Everything is up in the air is really the only way to put it.
Right, and I did see a comment. I'm not sure which of our articles it was on, but someone mentioned that it should be interesting to see if TSMC is manufacturing AMD's chips and Intel's chips to see them kind of on more equal footing than we've seen on the process. I mean, there's still going to be architectural differences, but there's always that discussion. Well, is 10 nanometer Intel really the same as 5 or 7 nanometer AMD? Do you think that is something that could come into play if this happens, or do you think that the differences are still enough that it's still kind of going to be an apples and oranges comparison on that feature size count?
I mean, it's going to be apples and oranges. The efficiency in terms of architecture, it's two wildly different architectures, at least with Intel's current stuff. Should they build something out on 7 nanometer, it's going to be something totally different. So who knows? Intel has been putting huge focus in EMIB and Foveros. So it's a possibility that next gen stuff is a chiplet style like AMD. We're not sure yet. But the direct apples to apples comparison at an ultra technical level is not there. What's going to matter is platform power. And if you look at 14 nanometer now with Intel's chips that are really pushing it, yes, they're higher power, clock for clock, core for core, but it's not like out of the ballpark. So, and that's at 14 nanometer. So even if Intel took their existing parts, shrunk them down to 7 nanometer, bolted on a few more cores, I think they'd be competitive, assuming TSMC can build them properly. So yeah, it's again, we're speculating, but anything can happen. Like it really, this is unprecedented that Intel may build processors and other stuff at a third-party fab.
Chipzilla stumbles.
It happened before. It happened with NetBurst. AMD pulled ahead, and then what happened? Conroe came and crushed AMD for a decade. So I mean, it could happen again. You never know. Intel has unfortunately lost lots of talent as well through all of this. But you do not count Chipzilla out, man. There is so much engineering talent and so much innovation and intelligence at Intel HQ that you can't count them out. Yes, it's really competitive right now, and AMD is firing on all cylinders, but Intel is still Intel. Anything can happen.
Right, and there's so many, especially on the business side, enterprise side, who just know Intel. It's like no one ever got fired for buying an IBM. They're stick with Intel, even if it's maybe not the most value efficient purchase, because they have experience with it working. So it is hard to make those changes at scale, but I don't think that's going to stop AMD from cutting into their enterprise market share either.
Yeah, Epic is really a very strong product, and it's only going to get stronger. With what is it, Milan coming next? It just looks AMD is definitely going to pick up some share there, and that's the big money stuff, which will really help their bottom line. So, and like I said, AMD's got lots of goodness to look forward to in the near to semi long term.
So
yeah. So we should probably move on. Talking about numbers and speculating is not quite as exciting for everybody, I'm sure. Just this past week, just a few days ago, Miriam posted up a brand new review of the OnePlus Nord. She also covered the OnePlus, what are they called? The OnePlus Buds as well. Yep. That was a separate review. I'm not going to spend much time on that, but if you want to see that accessory, we have that review. So the OnePlus Nord is a really interesting phone. First, I should mention it is not destined for the US just yet. There will be a new version coming later. But this was the first Qualcomm Snapdragon 765 base device that we took a look at with the Adreno 620 graphics. And that platform is a much more affordable platform. So the OnePlus Nord is sort of destined for the sub $500 market, though there are many memory and storage configurations. So it's going to be, sub or above $500, but definitely not in that crazy flagship price range. So Qualcomm Snapdragon 765, the model that Miriam looked at was a 12 gig phone, up to 256 gigs of UFS 2.1 storage, and nothing crazy on the camera side either. 48 megapixel f1.75 main shooter on the back. On the front, 32 megapixel main shooter with an 8 megapixel wide angle as well. Relatively large battery, 4.1 milliamp hour battery in here. And now what you'll see is I should probably mention the screen too, huh? 6.44-inch full HD AMOLED display. So not crazy high res, 2400 by 1080, 90 hertz with HDR support. So not the leading edge display versus today's flagships, but a really nice display. And what you'll see if you come by the site, look at the numbers, is performance sort of in line with last year's flagships. 855 class performance, maybe a little bit behind, like Google Pixel 4 class performance on the CPU side. Mm-hmm. But on the GPU side, a little bit lower. So it was towards the tail end of the charts on the GPU side, still strong, still like 90 plus frames per second in T-Rex and Manhattan. Towards the bottom in 3D Mark as well. But in terms of the user experience, Miriam really liked this phone. She said the experience was really strong. You have the advantages of OnePlus's really clean software install. Everything felt snappy and fluid, and decent battery life too, up in the upper third in terms of battery life. But for 40% of the price of current flagships, it looks like a pretty cool phone.
Yeah, I really like this kind of level of smartphones in the market where you're not at the flagship. Yeah, you're giving up things like a killer camera, but for day-to-day usage on something like the 765 chip or even the 600 series chips that Qualcomm has, they're more than plenty to navigate through email, web browsing, and stuff. So you're not going to notice any stutters there. They sip power, so it's going to last a very long time in a smaller form factor where, once the 800 series chips heat up, they can chew through a battery pretty quick, even as efficient as they've gotten. So I really like this plus or minus $400 range of phones. You get a lot of value for your money, and the Nord looks like no exception. So be very excited to see that come to the US. I'm using a Pixel 3a XL now, so kind of the same sort of area of the market, sub flagship, but still great performance. And using it next to a flagship phone, I don't notice much difference with that because I'm not doing powerful 3D gaming on my phone. It's more of a work tool for me. So I think this is going to do very, very well in the market. I think it's going to be a very popular handset.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Dave loves OnePlus phones. I believe he's on the OnePlus 8 right now as his daily driver. And it's funny, this is one of the kind of pitfalls of benchmarking phones. It's the same as benchmarking a PC. You can see these really long bars for the high-end stuff, and you think that those really short bars for the mainstream parts make them slow, but the experience is still really good.
Right.
I stuck around on a Note 8 for a couple of years. I'm sorry to cut you off. What was that?
I was going to say, I think a log scale on the benchmark scores would probably be more realistic because, you get to a point of diminishing returns with the speed on them because, Android as an operating system isn't really demanding that much these days compared to what we're throwing our desktops through on a daily basis. So, yeah, they're faster, but it's synthetic. It doesn't really translate to your real world usage unless you're pushing a ton of AI applications, a ton of photo video processing on it, and of course cutting edge 3D games on the phone. But so many mobile games are made to cover as much of the market as they can that there's only a few titles that are really even going to take advantage of that, like PUBG or some of the racing games that escape me right now.
Yeah, exactly. But just to go to your point about using a log scale on a chart, if you ever do that, the trolls will come out and murder you. I did that in the past once. It was years ago, many years ago in a review, and holy crap, I got annihilated in the comments.
Yeah. Doesn't matter how clearly you label it. They're
exactly
not going to like it.
No, definitely not. You got to show the big long bars and the short bars. That is for sure. But yeah, really, I agree though. Really cool phone. The styling is nice. There's not one particular area where it's particularly strong, but it's one of those devices where it's kind of better than the sum of its parts, where you realize, maybe I don't need to spend top dollar and get the very best phone to have a good experience. Camera looked good. Performance is good. Screen looks good. So there's really minimal compromise for lots of dollar savings in your pocket with the Nord. So, and then going back to the kind of the same holds true for the buds. So $79 true wireless earbuds in the same vein as Apple's EarPods or whatever, or AirPods, whatever the heck they're called. I call them earpons. Yeah, so $79 true wireless free earphones for Android devices. There are some limitations in terms of, software support right now. They're brand new, but strong $70 or $80, I should say, true wireless buds. So if you can wear earbuds and they stay in your ear, unfortunately, I'm one of the people that can't. They just fall right out of my ear. But yeah, OnePlus is really, kicking it up in terms of not only affordable phones, but accessories, and with something like the OnePlus 8 now flagship phones too. So in a short time, this company's come really far.
Yeah, I mean, I like the Bud style. I've got some Akis that we had on the site a few weeks back on sale for $25. They were fine. They don't have all the nice features that these buds or the higher end buds do. And so, no, I don't get things like active noise cancellation or anything like that. They're just buds. But, I can only wear them for so long before it just starts to hurt. I don't have issues with them falling out so much. I think they've gotten better with their form fitting, across the different buds that I've tried, than they used to be. So less of a risk of falling out of the ear now. But especially with the ones with the rubber seals that go in the ear, a lot of discomfort with that. But these don't have that, so hopefully it'll be a bit better.
Yeah, I'm weird. Like I can get buds in my ear, but like if I'm on a plane where I would usually wear them, like this bud has the ear hook goes over my ear, so this one stays in, doesn't fall out. Mm-hmm. But if like I'm on a plane, like normal, I'm just using my travel buds. If I'm sitting still, they stay in. But if I chew or talk or whatever, they just fall right out. It's ridiculous. Even if I really cram them in, so I can never wear wireless buds like this. I would most definitely lose them, no question. So we actually have a comment in the chat from Raymond saying that the custom ROM guys are going to love the Nord. I agree. I'm also surprised the custom ROM guys still do their thing. I used to be one of those psychos that as soon as I got a phone, I wiped it and put a custom ROM on it. Now I don't touch my phones.
Yeah, I used to be flashing a different ROM every day. One time may have flashed a ROM while driving down the freeway. That's another story we won't talk about. But yeah, Android's gotten so good that there's kind of nothing that I need to ROM for anymore. Like all of my needs are met. Performance is balanced out. Battery life's gotten efficient. The features there, or there's more apps that can take advantage of the extra APIs they've added over the years, that you don't need root access for a ton of the stuff you used to do. So I know there's people who do still ROM, but the group of guys that I talk with regularly, we all used to be flashing different ROMs, developing stuff, and I don't think any of us are now. So it's very, very interesting how that culture has shifted. I mean, there's always going to be the people who are, it's my device, I'm going to run it how I want.
Yeah.
But
so Blackhawk says the only thing he'd be concerned with is like sneaky spy stuff. I think you got to be more concerned about that with the company's ROMs. These kind of not open source, but like community ROMs where everyone's got their sort of fingers poking around. Mm-hmm. I think you're less likely to have shady stuff in there. Like years ago, I was running energy ROMs on my Windows phone, Windows Mobile, on the HTC Tilt 2. Those added so much functionality and performance. They were so much better. And I think I was doing CyanogenMod on like the Galaxy S2 days.
Yep.
But yeah, I haven't touched anything since like the Note 4 days. I haven't been messing with my phones at all.
Yeah, I think the last phone that I rooted and ROM'd was probably my Motorola Razr HD. Yeah, because I had the Nexus 6 after that, because I'm like, oh yeah, I can ROM this, and then it just had everything I wanted, and I don't think I ever actually threw a ROM on it.
Gotcha. We should probably move on. We're getting close to the end here. It's already 10 after 6. One thing I want to quickly mention, I kind of screwed up doing this, hosting it. I'm missing Dave, so my brain's kind of scrambled here. I missed something I wanted to mention when we were talking about the AMD processors. We had our man Ben look at a new memory kit from ADATA XPG, the Spectrix D60G. This was a DDR4 3600 megahertz RAM kit, CL14, if I believe. So really low latency based on Samsung's B die. So this is a relatively expensive memory kit. It's like $200 for only 16 gigs, so way pricier than most of the mainstream memory that's out there, but lowest latency and relatively high clocks. And he looks at performance on a Ryzen platform at 3600 megahertz, 3200 megahertz, and 2400 megahertz, just to kind of show the spread in terms of bandwidth and performance in game and a bunch of other apps. So that's something interesting you should go check out. Ryzen definitely looks stronger with faster memory, but the deltas are very different depending on the type of app, and whether or not spending that kind of money on 16 gigs is worth it is totally going to be up to you. If you want the best of the best, yeah, you're going to want to spend the extra money because it's faster in games and you have lower latency all around. But, you know, big price premium for that memory kit. So definitely come by the site, check that out. Okay. I should have mentioned it when we were talking AMD, but sorry, Chris,
I was looking through here. I'm like, okay, it's a Ben review. Do we have frame times? And yes, we have frame times.
Of course.
So
of course we do.
Love it.
I really should spend the time to do that more. I just revamped my graphics test bed in anticipation of stuff that may or may not be coming. So lots of new games, completely fresh Windows install, all the latest software drivers, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, I have to kind of work this into my flow. It's definitely interesting. So like if you look at his numbers there for that, you'll see like even going with the faster memory smoothed the frame times a little, not a ton, but definitely less spikes.
A little less.
So there are, yeah. So there's benefits all around, whether or not it's across every benchmark. So if you want the best of the best, you definitely want to go with the lowest latency, highest clock kit that you can afford.
Yeah.
You know, that's the gist.
Even if your average frame rate is high, you could still have periods where you've got slow frames like we're seeing in the middle of these graphs, that the faster memory can just help give that extra little bit. Your CPU as well, like it all kind of contributes, but the more stable you can get your frame times, the better experience you're going to feel.
Exactly. So that is the gist there. But it's before we close things out, two interesting things we should probably talk about. One, our Ryzen Radeon giveaway did close. There is an announcement up on the site. I believe all the winners checked in, but just for everybody watching that may not come by the site as often to see the live posts on HotHardware.com, Gunnar Schubert, Richard, I'm not going to even attempt to pronounce your last name, and Johnny Hendy are three winners. So first place was that Ryzen 7 3800 XT. Second place, really great second place prize, a Sapphire Radeon RX 5700 XT GPU. And third place, Ryzen 5 3600X 6-core processor. I know everybody, if you guys are watching, all of your contact information has been sent for shipping information, for shipping reasons. And I don't think stuff is on the way just yet, but it's coming. So congratulations to the winners there. And now we should talk about our next giveaway, right, Chris? So we hinted at the beginning. That beautiful machine behind Chris right now is from EK. Chris, what model machine is that? So
this is the EK Fluid Gaming Conquest 270. So it's an all AMD system. It's got the Ryzen 7 3800X as well as a Radeon 5700 XT. Did I say that right? Yeah.
Yep.
So fully custom liquid cooled system. It literally comes with the liquid in a bottle to fill up the front distribution plate yourself. So it's the real deal, not a little all-in-one kit. It's a beautiful system from the little bit of toying with it that I have done. Let me move out of the way and see if we can get some focus. So you can see it a little better.
Hey, that Canon autofocus kicking in. Go Canon.
Yeah, there we go. So yeah, the front distribution plate on it is awesome. It's all integrated, so it acts as your reservoir. The pump is there. You can kind of track the liquid flowing up bit by bit, pipe by pipe, up to the top through a 360 millimeter radiator back into the reservoir. Very awesome. So you're getting the liquid cooled CPU and GPU on it, with of course EK water blocks, because why wouldn't it be? So very, very awesome system. We're excited to take a look at it. We're very excited to give one away. So the winner won't get this exact system because it's here. We're going to ship a new one with the same specs, I believe, right?
Yeah, so Chris is going to review this one first. Chris is going to review the system, so you'll see exactly what it's made of and how it performs and what it does. And then I believe we'll time the giveaway with the review. At least that's the plan. We'll see how it all shakes out. Now we have Sanchez mentioning that the last giveaway was rigged. No, it wasn't, brother. Gleam is completely random, man. You hit a button and Gleam picks the winners.
No
What
bias.
else can we do? Yeah, it's like super, super easy. And Blackhawk mentions, yes, we are hiring. We need someone to help out in the news. And if you're a good writer, maybe you can start doing reviews for us as well. And I believe if you go up further in the chat, Nathan Ord was chatting. I think Nathan actually expressed interest. Nathan, I think I chatted with you on Facebook. If not, shoot me an email and we'll get that ball rolling just to discuss it and see if there's something that works. So we totally need somebody to help on the news team. It is really fun, really straightforward. Oh, that is Nathan Ord.
Blackhawk is Nathan. So, if you were on the Discord, Marco, you'd know that.
Listen, I'm old. I forget this stuff. Don't hold it against me. But yeah, so we actually are our news managing editor and Dave curate headlines every morning. You guys will, you'll pick from an assortment of headlines and hopefully write intelligently on the topics. And yeah, man, it's a paid gig. It's fun. You get to work with us at HotHardware. If it turns out that you have the time and you're a decent writer, maybe we can work you in for some features and reviews too. So yeah, if you're interested, definitely reach out. My email address is marco@hothardware.com. Feel free to shoot me a note. You can find me all over social media as well, or even just comment here. Maybe we can get the ball rolling as well.
Twitter just below his chin.
Yeah, there you go. My Twitter's below my chin, and a bunch of my editor friends retweeted that we were hiring on Twitter, so I'm getting a bunch of notifications through Twitter as well. But you can reach me that way as well. That's perfectly fine, also.
Yeah, Dave and Marco are all right.
Yeah, and I'm in front of my PC all day, Nathan. So yes, you can shoot me a note on Facebook. That's no problem as well.
Yeah. Anything else to wrap up?
I don't think so. I think that's good. I'm feeling all discombobulated without Dave here. Hopefully we weren't rambling too much and we were sort of coherent. I thought we did kind of half decent, Chris. So kudos to Chris for managing the cameras and participating in half of the podcast. Everyone give Chris a round of applause. Yay.
Yeah, I think we had a really strong start until OBS decided to not bring in the audio. So you didn't get the strong start, but such is life.
At least my video probably looked awesome on my beautiful Olympus OMD EM1 Mark III. How do you like this video, guys? Looks good. Much better, right?
Rest in peace, Olympus.
Exactly. All right, so we should probably wrap it up. I'm rambling now. So if you have not been to the site, if you're seeing us on YouTube and you don't come by hothardware.com regularly, shame on you. Come by the site. We only kind of touch on a fraction of the stories and articles that get posted here in the podcast. Much, much more stuff on the site. We're obviously on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. Used to be on Google+. That's gone. We're all over the web. But please come by Hot Hardware, participate with other like-minded geeks, come have some fun, make some friends. Other than that, like and subscribe here, and please click that reminder bell. It's important to us to have you regularly, and we want you to know when we go live or we post something new. We're going to try to step up the YouTube presence. That's kind of my whole reason for sort of working out my new video rig here. So yeah, please like, subscribe, click that reminder bell. Other than that, I think that about wraps it up. Chris, anything you want to say?
Yeah, keep stopping by the site. Enter to win once we have the post up for you to enter. And thanks for stopping by.